Hmm.
Hey, bonjour, Giniwgiizhig.
Bonjour, Ogimaagiizhig. See, today we're going to talk about Vision Quest, and this is for our students in our puberty curriculum. Now, we want to know what is a Vision Quest?
I have a vision quest. First, let me start. Ogimaagiizhig Nindao Nindude Madik. I'm boss of the sky. I'm Caribou Clan. Um, what is a vision quest? So a vision quest is you seek a vision and you go out in the woods and you don't eat, sleep, or drink anything, and you're all alone, and you will go out with your first family, which is nature, and they will bring you vision by way of you don't sleep during the night, but you can sleep during the day, and you'll have a dream, or animals and birds or weather things come to you, and that gets interpreted for your life. But you go to your first family, which is nature. Respect all beings, all things, and in nature is our first family, and then you get guidance, counsel, and strength from that first family.
So a vision, like when I'm trying to think of one time I was out in the woods and I had some hands, just hands, and they had beaded cuffs. They came up and they kept tickling me, and I in the ribs, under my ribs, and I said, don't, gaggle, 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 and I woke up and it was nighttime, and then there was nothing there, and so afterwards I went to the medicine man that put me out in the woods, and he kept fire and watched over for me, and he said they needed you to wake up because they were gifting you with a gift. They were giving you a gift. You had to be awake for this one. And it was
Mm.
the gift of patience. And so so sometimes we get visions, like some people, they'll get a vision. Here's 4 names. You can have these names and you're a name giver. Or you might have a vision of a pipe, or you might have a vision of a drum, or you might have a vision of being a good singer or something. You might be a gift of kindness, or what have you. So
Yes, yes. So in those visions, they come easier and come to you when you're out on a vision quest without any food or water, and you kind of open yourself up to purity of no noise, no other human activities, and at one with nature. So these spiritual entities can bring you those nice gifts, as nice vision as you got. Vision quest is also called fasting, meaning abstaining from food and drink, and kind of an equivalent of Vision Quest, or remark. So Vision Quest or fasting is I grew up with being called fasting. So that's that in English.
so all Ojibways did that. All the guys did that, and even women would fast, right?
Yes, yes. Men are more groomed for it. Women have an inherent power, so they don't fast as much. They'll fast, but they don't fast as much as men do. Men fast a lot and should fast a lot and should fast. I would say when you start fasting around the age of 9 or 10, even 8, you should by age 11 or 12 you should have done your first fast by then, and and girls will do 1 or 2 fasts, and then they can continue to fast if they want. Several women do. My sister, my mom does, but men should fast throughout their lives. And when they gain an older age, around 40, they usually, um, even in their 30s, will kind of step back and won't fast as much because they're getting into their older eldership. But young men need to earn their power, hone their strengths, and that's how they make it through that. Women give the have the gift of life, so they don't need to. Their intuitive skills are a little better than men, but men need to hone that and constantly recenter and refocus their abilities to respect all things around them, including women.
Yeah, I remember this old guy saying that he said, why do men get all the gifts? And well, he said he didn't say that. Uh, he said men are pitiful. Women have the gift of life, of giving
Hmm.
life. And that's the most powerful gift in the universe. And men are just pitiful. And so they said, how come I don't got any gift? So they go out on the vision quest to find out what their gift is. So that's the balance. Women are really powerful. They have the most powerful gift in the universe, which is life. And
Yes,
that's why
yes.
men fast a lot more to find out what their gift is. Uh, I think that's all for now. And we'll go on to our next question here. And
Okay.
the next question I have that we can talk about is, what are the different ways of fasting?
Fasting. This is cool. Personally, I have only fasted on the ground.
Mhm.
But you can go up in a scaffold. They build a scaffold up in a tree, like a little ledge or something they'll put up with logs or boards, mainly being logs, and then you climb up there and then you just stay in that one spot. So when you go fasting, you can use tobacco or flags. You mark a little area, just enough to sit in with your blankets and things, and that's your area you stay in. You can exit that to use the bathroom or come down from the scaffold. But yeah, you go in a scaffold, which is up in a tree, or even people have just climbed up in a tree, or on the ground. My grandma used to say that in Red Lake, before they flooded the lake, there was sandbars, and the sandbars were visible during the day, but would with the shifting at night with the moon, the water levels would rise in areas. So you at night, the water would come up a foot or two on those sand dunes, or those little sand islands out in the lake, and they would put young men out there to fast, and you would have to stand up during the night while you were in the water. And that was a form of fasting with that. But you go to where there's no human activity, on the ground, by a lake, by a river, or just way out in the woods somewhere, out by your out way out where you're alone and nothing around but nature. Um, yeah, yeah, and then you go out that way. You can use, sometimes they'll tie tobacco ties in the color of flags. They'll put them up in the four directions, and you sit inside there, or you put a little circle of tobacco around yourself, depending on who puts you out to fast and what that protocol is. Also, I just want to mention, that when you come in, people do it different ways. I've done it, where you go out and people will make a fire, either not too far from you or somewhere, not close to you, but will keep watch over you. Otherwise, you just get put out there and you come in. They'll usually have a feast when you come in. Sometimes they'll have you do a sweat lodge when you come in. um, and finding how many days you need to go out, is a whole different thing too, depending on who puts you out. Sometimes they'll smoke their pipe and they'll decide how many days you go out. But it's a uniform. It's a uniform thing that your first fast is your Ogimaagiizhig fast as a young man, and or Ogimaagiizhig as a woman. But that first fast should be a night and a day, and that prepares you for further fasting, through your life. And you can fast at any time, any season. My grandma used to say, if you went out in the middle of winter and did a day, it was 2 days to the spirits. Or if you went out in the middle of summer when it was really hot and with all the mosquitoes, a day was seen as 2 days in the spiritual world. So, but the fasting time is in the spring and fall, and it usually starting October or end of May, is the fasting times. But me personally, I've only fasted on the ground, um, by lakes, by rivers. There's some special fasting areas, especially on Red Lake. There's a common one that I fasted a lot at, was Morrison Lake area. On the backside of the lake, there is a piece of land that's around the lake that has never been touched by logging, and is a kind of a spiritual area, and is marked off for that, and that's only for fasting. It's in the way out in the woods, very beautiful, smells good, pretty, lots of animals, wildlife, and it's a nice place to fast.
Yeah, I know. I remember my namesake. He said you can even fast at home. He said it's
Mm.
hard, but you can fast at home. Like I fasted at home for 4 days before. No drinking any beverages, and no eating. And it's actually harder because all that food's right in front of you. You're so you're used to just grabbing stuff and eating. And then he would even say, you can do little fasts. You can do from sunrise to sunset fast. Uh, uh, you can abstain from something. You can say, I'm not going to eat whatever your favorite food is. No pop. If you love pop, then you say
Mm,
no pop for one day, or no breads or something
mm.
like that. You can pick something that is really tough to keep your hands off. That's another kind
Yes,
of
yes.
fast. I fasted in a sweat lodge before. Uh,
Mm.
I know some people sweat in uh, uh, some people fast in sweat lodges, and I've
As most sweat lodge keepers should, right? They if
yeah,
you put a sweat lodge up, they should do their they should do a fast in there for that sweat lodge.
yeah.
Yeah. Gnu, I wanted to also mention also what the different types of fast you include on is something there that's very important that I didn't get to talk about. Again, if you go fasting, person that puts you out will put you through a protocol, especially if you're a young man. You will meet with probably a handful of elder men that will give you teachings and prepare you for your first fast, which Gnu said was part of mine also, was that abstaining for food. So they what from food and drink and stuff at home while you do a regular day, and that was called we called it a dry fast, and I did 4 of those, one day and a night dry fast before I went out on mine. And part of getting ready was even sitting out in the woods. So as you kids would prepare yourselves for fasting, you would actually go out and they put you out in the woods for 2 hours and then come get you. Then it'd be 4 hours, then it'd be 6 hours, then they'd leave you out there most of the night and then come get you, just to get you prepared for that. And the fasting also with the different kinds of fast, Gnu mentioned you can fast from like pop or a favorite food, and a lot of times that was done with grief also. So if you have a person passes away in your family, you can honor them and help them in the spirit world by going on a fast of like your favorite food. When my grandpa passed, um, my favorite food was deer meat. So I did a year fast, and then once a year was up, I broke that fast, and we had a little ceremony for that for my grandpa. And those dry fasts are really good because they do get you ready. Anytime you can do those. For some reason, I don't know if it was regular protocol or if it was from we had to hide this stuff, but my grandma used to, when we go on these fasts, it would only be me and her that knew about it, and I would just tell people, well, I already ate if I went somewhere, and I said, oh, I can't eat them. I already ate. I'm waiting for something else. So you don't let anybody know that you're fasting on a dry fast. You just go through your day without accepting those things and alluding that you can't do that right now, and make whatever excuse you need to. Yeah, that is some good stuff, Ganil.
Um, Next question. Men's roles. There's women's roles and there's men's roles. And what is it we need to teach our young boys, our young men? What
What?
are men's roles?
All right, so men's roles and women's roles, as we said, like right now, like even with fasting, there is a men's way to fast and a woman's way to fast. Men are groomed for more fasting than women. Also, men, your responsibilities are outside the wigwam or the home, taking care of the yard, um, providing meat and groceries. And nowadays we don't hunt as much, but we got to bring money in to bring those groceries in. Um, and also, we don't go on war parties anymore or get groomed for battle, but we do have to protect the home and protect our family by not necessarily by force, but taking care of things and being responsible around the home to offset to protect the family and make sure everybody's healthy and good. And those responsibilities keep on for life. As a young man, this audience that's watching this, your uncles, your dad, your uncles, grandfather, great uncles, um, and those could be adoptive ones in your family, or just good family friends will will give you advice and protect you and teach you responsibility. And as you get older, you will reciprocate that by teaching young men also those different things on what's important, and do these different things. So men's roles, there's a lot of them. So men teach men how to be men. Women teach women how to be women. So with those roles, it can be anything. In the even in your own home, like young men, you should be, and this is very important. I want to say this to the young guys there, that in a traditional upbringing, you would at one point in your Ogitchida teaching, there's a switch of the roles portion where you would shadow your mother for a moon, for a month, and when the moon comes full, goes out and comes back, you would switch roles. So you would work with your mother, you would cook with her, do the laundry, everything she does, you would do. And this is very, very important because in my own life, I've seen a lot of domestic violence, abuse, a lot of different things, violence against women and things. But my teaching with that was with my grandmother is that that I would be able to respect women better by knowing what their roles were and by helping with those. And I needed to learn how to cook. I needed to learn how to do laundry because I would have to move. I would do have to do that for myself at some point, even
Yeah.
without being with a woman and having a family. And everything my grandma said came true. I did have to cook for myself. I do have to do my own laundry at times, even though the family structure is set up. But with my girlfriend, my wife, um, I fully respect those roles and what she does, and I know they are a lot of work, and I know what goes into planning a meal, doing laundry, cleaning, anything else that is that role that a woman takes up. You know.
Yep. So like if your wife is if your wife has gone to a conference or off
Hmm.
taking her PhD classes on the weekend, you have to you have to cook, you have to do all of those
Hmm.
roles. So
Yes.
men's roles and women's roles sometimes they flip flop, and
Yes. And young men, the young men, I speak to them that it's good to switch those roles like that's in the Ogichida teachings, because then you will respect those roles and that work and know how much women do. So you will have an inherent respect for women, and that's why that is set up. And then the same thing with girls. The same thing goes. Girls will follow an uncle or a father, will shadow them in their own training for that same amount of time to see what men's work is, what men do, and just to know those things. And not only that, to when you become when you become into puberty, when you shoot your first deer and become a man, or when a woman gets her moon time, they get all these teachings as they take those roles. So what the other role is also, so where what the men's responsibilities are when you get into a relationship. Your husband or your wife is responsible for these things, and you work together in more unison, more together to do those things. So anybody watching this video, you young kids, um, do that. You don't might not need to be overseen by an elder, but take a week and shadow your mom or shadow your dad, and change those roles once, and discuss it when things are done on what you learned, what you thought going into it, and what you learned. That's how it went with me, with a circle of elders, with a pipe, with tobacco present. This is all spiritual stuff of who we are as an Ojibwe, and those roles are very, very important. They're fluid. It doesn't mean because you're a man you don't cook. Um, you're a man, and and part of your role is you should be able to cook. Um, if your wife is gone, you cook for the family and take care of the kids, and you do both roles
yeah.
as needed.
Yeah, I was along those same lines. I was taught the women are in charge of the inside circle, and like you said, and the men are the outside circle. Inside circle, the woman is the boss of the house, and so all this macho stuff you got to let go.
Mm-hmm.
You need to realize the woman is the one that has to keep track of everything. Who's sick?
Mm-hmm.
Who needs go to the hospital or see a medicine man? Uh, how many chairs do we need, or what do we need around the house? You need to go buy these at the store. You need to run to the store and get this and get that. And honey, do this, honey, your honey-do list. You got to do this and do that. They keep track. They're the brains. They're the brains of the house, and
Yes. Yes.
they're the ones that are the boss. And even in like the community, they call them Ogitchidakwigs. uh, when when they're planning community events, that's still part of the inside circle. They're the ones that just make the decisions. The men they tell the men, let's say we're having a big feast or a conference. The women are making the plannings, and they say, all right, we need 20 tables, we need 200 chairs. You need to run over and go get some over at the next community center. They got more chairs over there. And we need plates, we need this, we need that. They're the boss of the inside circle. They make the everyday decisions.
Mm,
And the men are boss of the outside circle. They make the rare decisions. Should we move to a different community or a different spot? The man's job, and like the rare decisions, should we go to war or not go to war? Should we get a war party? Those are some of the older decisions, the rare decisions. But the man's job is outside circle, is to know where to hunt, where's the food at, what is the behavior of the animals and the fish and the birds, and to know where to go hunt at, where to provide for the
mm,
family. And you talked about providing, and also where is it safe. They're the men are the protectors. Our job is to protect women, and our family is to willing to give our life for them. We're never ever to hit a woman, ever. That
mm,
is totally
mm.
wrong.
Yes.
And
Very, very good.
if you're beating a woman, your clan brothers should come up and straighten you out. They need to
Hmm.
sit you down, and there needs to be justice for what you did. You walk away. You go get help. You get counseling.
Hmm.
You never ever hit a woman, and don't do it verbally either. Don't say mean things all the time, little tiny jabs all the time. None of that. You know, whatever you
Hmm.
put efforts you put into a woman, you get that back. If you're kind to them, it's kind back. Everything's like a mirror in life. So men are outside circle. If this has something to do with the next community, if whatever the decision is, that's men's rules. We got to go
Hmm.
tell those guys, hey, there's something coming up, and a battle, or we need to move, or something that has to do. Then that's the men's role, is war and safety, and
Mm,
always protect the women. And we'll
mm.
get into, there's a question coming up in that. Here is the question right now. Why must when men respect women, Niji?
All right. Can you enlighten on that earlier? So, men must respect women because they are a life-giving force. Um, they are considered a little more sacred than men, and we respect all things and all beings, and it starts with women. That is the teaching. It's short, simple, very sweet. We can get into like a lot of whys and different things, but that creator gave us the instructions to respect all things, all beings, and that starts with women because women gave birth to us. They were our first contact coming out. We come out of their womb. We're the first connected to. So everybody knows this. I usually tell my students, like, right now, that when things go wrong for you or you need advice, it's always the grandmothers you go see right away, right? They always got the best advice. And respecting women, that is, we're taught this at a young age to respect women, and we're constantly reminded of what they do for us and how they help us and heal us. Even in the home, when something ails you, or you get a cut, or you get injured or something, the woman is the first line of healing, and usually does a very good job at it. um, and the reason I respect women is because of the teachings I was brought up as an Ogichida, of just respecting not only the knowledge and the abilities and everything they've formed in my own life. You know, it's just always there, inherent respect, even to the when I play Moxon game. Um, the way I hide and the strategy I use came from my grandmother and my mom, who knew things about the game. And they've always had the best advice. They've always made me feel good when I've been at my lowest. um, my wife always has my back, and when I have a bad day, um, cooks very good meals when I'm very hungry, and has good advice when I have nowhere else to turn or don't know what to do. And that in itself commands respect for women. So if you are not respecting women, um, you need to go back through some of these teachings and start seeing why you're not grateful for some of these things. With any of the things that they provide and help with. If they don't, then you need to go fasting. Maybe you need to shadow a woman for a while, and you when you live a good life and you're open to these teachings and respecting all things and beings, it's inherently um, happens that you respect women, and then and everything else trickles down. You respect yourself, sober, productive, positive. You know, when any of that breaks down, we become sick. You know, in many different ways, and it comes out in that way. Um, I got a little domestic violence story about respecting women, but I don't know if we have time for it. So we
Yeah.
can probably we can do that at another time.
Yeah. So I'm thinking too, even in it's your language is your culture is reflected in your language. Your language evolves through
Yes.
thousands of years. In our language, men and women are equal.
Mm.
And when you're saying give a buck a day, that means she is hungry, but it also means he is hungry. It means
Mm.
both male and female. In our
Yes.
language, we're equally balanced. And even see the picture of this wigwam behind me, they would say one pole is the male side and the other pole is the female side. And together they make your house and they make the family. There's that, they come together to make the family. And like you said, the women is the woman is where we get life from. Sometimes when we would have medicines, the women would be in charge. Like they would say, when we're having ceremony, the women put the cedar down because they're boss of the medicines. They're the ones that are part of that healing. Uh, like I remember I went to Sweat Lodge and this guy, I said, hey, we got to put the cedar down. He said, who's going to put the cedar down? There's no women. There was just a couple of us guys. I said, well, sometimes we got to switch roles and we're going to have to put the cedar down ourselves in there. Uh, uh, so it's kind of yin and yang. Yin and yang, it's an equal balance. Everything that we have in our life is balanced equally. There's the male side, the female side, light, day, hot, cold, fire, water. And women
Mm.
are in charge of the water and men are in charge of the fire. Uh, and uh, uh, and if we look at water, water is controlled by the moon, grandmother moon.
Mm.
Grandmother moon watches over us, takes care of us, gives us life. Mother earth, grandmother, auntie, mom, sister, all of them we have to respect and protect them. Again, protect them with our lives. That's what the warrior isn't a thug. A warrior isn't someone that does mean things. A warrior
Mhm.
is the one that's protecting women and family
Mhm.
and their village, and that's the ultimate sacrifice. And that's why you get that. You become a warrior by going out and putting your life on the line for women. You're not a warrior by mugging someone and taking their purse or taking their pill medicines or taking stealing. That's not warrior. A warrior is love. So we need to respect those women and do everything we can to protect our family and our nation.
Oh,
Next,
that was
next
well
question.
said.
Next question, Niji. We're gonna go on to uh, how will going back to visions. How will boys know when it's time for a vision quest?
Okay, this is so how you know when you're ready. This is the old method of doing it. The old style is how I was told, and then we'll kind of go into nowadays. So, um, everybody likes toys and candy and stuff. So your grandpa or your male or your grandpa um, would, and I'm talking from the male perspective. It was a little different for females, but And I'll go on to that one after I talk about this one. But your grandpa or or some or uncle would put his two hands out. One hand he would have a toy or a candy on it, and the other one would be a charcoal. And you would have to choose one at fasting time. So once you hit age 7, this is when it started. Your warrior training as a male starts at 7. Different for girls. My gram said that our Earth has been a hostile place forever, even before Columbus arrived. And your warrior training had to start at age 7. So, and a lot of kids didn't. There's only one story I know of where the kid went up and grabbed the charcoal. So when you grab the charcoal, you're ready to fast, and you go out on your first fast, your Ogimaagiizhig fast. Your Ogimaagiizhig training starts. As a child, if you go up, most kids will go up and grab the toy or the candy, and then they know they're not ready. And then the next fasting season, that uncle or grandpa will put his hands out and make that young boy choose. When they choose that charcoal, they're ready to go. Well, anyway, that's the old style of doing it. But anyway, when you get older, when you get about age 9, they say when you should fast by age 10 or 11. You should fast and should get your first day and first night out there. So I guess traditionally they would when the kid kept choosing the toy and stuff, they would tease him. They would tease him and tell him that he was still a child yet, and kind of it would get him starting to want to do his fasting, kind of push him into it. And then you would go out on your first fast, and then we'll save the rest of that for whoever puts you out. They'll give you instructions. Like I said, we already said you prepare. They'll Once you pick that charcoal, or they'll tell you you're going to go out, that's your first fast, and you're younger, so they'll blacken your face with that coal. That's what that's for. They'll rub it on their hands, and they'll blacken your face on your first fast. That's what they did with me. I was 10 when I went out and did my first fast. I was prepared at 9, but went out, I think, when I was 10. I might have been out when I was 9 even. I don't remember. I might have to ask my mom. But they'll blacken your face and put you out for that Ogimaagiizhig fast. So it's a little bit different, and then they'll prepare you for it, sitting out in the woods. They'll first for a couple of hours, then a few hours, and then most of the night, and then they'll a couple of dry fasts at home, and then you'll be prepared for that to go out on your own and receive teachings from several elders. They don't just put you out there, so you'll get old guys that elder men that will tell you this is how you get ready. This is what you're thinking of. And one thing we didn't touch on was that talking about it. So what they told me when I went out, my Miskwanikwaribun, Du Damon Makwan, said, your feelings, pay attention to your feelings. When you get out there, you're going to feel every feeling there is. You're going to think of a funny joke and laugh. You're going to think of funny things. You're going to feel really good. But at the same time, you're going to be scared out of you're going to be, might feel the worst fear you've ever felt out there. And you might feel really bad, or something that you're out there, or worried about somebody, or just not wanting to be out there, or really bored. You're going to feel every feeling there is to feel that a man feels, and that's what that's getting ready for. You're going to be hungry because you're going to have to go hungry sometimes for your family. You're going to be scared because there's going to be lots of times in your life you're going to be scared. You're going to feel good because there's a lot of times you're going to feel good. You're going to feel happy because there's a lot of happiness in life. So that's what you're getting you ready for. So you pay attention to your feelings. So you'll get all these things, and then go out on that fast. And it's not like you get it all done on one time. You will fast several times through your life, or through high school. Now that I'm a teacher, I tell people, my seniors, seniors in high school, senior boys, they should have been out fasting several times. From age 11, you should probably get out once a year, twice a year if you want to. By the time you reach adulthood, so that's back to how do you know you should fast with women. I'm gonna say what I know with women. I see my sisters go through theirs, their time. So when they get their moon, it's kind of a marker time as a woman. They get all the women's teachings. They actually go on a berry fast. And it's not just fasting from berries. It's a whole protocol they follow for a year fast that women do when they first get that. So right away they're already doing something that men don't do. a little step up from it. So they go on what's kind of coined as a berry fast, and they will go out. So when they get their moon time, they usually got about a year or two before they're taken out on their own fast. Women's fasts are a little bit different, especially the first one. They're usually taken out in groups and overseen by boss women that have fasted a lot. So, and a lot of times what they'll do is they'll take them out and put them out during the day when it's dark. They will take them in and they will sit in a home with, like, in a room or a wigwam, together silently, um, and without communication and stuff, still pulling in their spiritual visions, and then we'll return back out into the woods during daylight. So it's a little different, but women are expected to do a fast, at least one, for their berry fast and some of that stuff. Sometimes they'll do it before they go on their berry fast. Sometimes they'll complete their berry fast for that year and then do their fasting. And then it's kind of done there. They usually pick and choose after that when they do their fasting. They usually don't fast as much as men, but there are women that do it. My sister just came off a 4-day one 2 years ago, and that's her thing. She still goes out for those, but at the same time, she holds a boss position. So I do want to touch on this also, Giniw, with you kids out there, that there's a couple of stories that I've kind of left out about women, respecting women and fasting, and they're lengthy stories that we can tell at another time. But we're talking about your first fast. So as men and women, when you grow up and you get older and you've done your first fast and you've been out there, you know what it's about. There's different type of fasts. There's longer fasts, not just one day and a night. My gram said your first one should be a day and a night, just to get you ready for further fasting. And anywhere from 4 to 8 days. An 8-day is a chief fast or a boss fast. People that are hold chief positions traditionally did chief fasts, which were 7 to 10 days. Boss fast, they say anything over 4 is a boss fast. So if you become chief or you become a high level community leader, you should do that, because with that longer fast, you will gain vision that helps you in whatever endeavor you are. If you're a chief, I'm a day chief. You doctor people. You sit on a tribal council. You're some type of community leader. You should do a boss fast, is what they're called. Boss fasts are typically kind of nowadays. The boss fast, when I was a kid, when it was talked about, was usually a 8-day fast. Nowadays, they kind of consider a 4-day fast a boss fast. So anywhere in those higher realms is a boss fast. If you retain a position of some type, you do that. Other than that, there's 2-day fasts, 3-day fasts, whatever you're called upon. You might get doctored, and they might tell you need to do a 4-day fast. And then even with that, it doesn't mean 4 days in a row. It might mean I go out in the spring for a day, the next fall for a day, the next spring for a day, the next fall. So you might do four fasts over 2 years, or you could do a 4-day fast all at once. So it's kind of between you and your whoever doctors you, whoever guides you. Midday, even sometimes you'll come out of midday and they'll recommend you do a day fast or do certain things, and then all that. So that kind of leads you into that, and you get your own answers when you fast on purposes of life and decision making, especially as men. You're guided by those spiritual things. So I just wanted to add that in there, so you kids, so you got a lot on your mind when you think of it. Doesn't just end with one fast, a day and a night. It could be several, and it's good. You get a lot of praying, and we didn't really talk about what you do on a fast. I'd like to tell you young guys that, just to get you ready a little bit when you fast, you do just sit there and you do nothing. You don't eat, you don't put your fingers in your mouth, and all of creation is witnessing you doing the sacrifice. You don't sleep at night. You can sleep when it's light out, and to gain those visions, and then you pray while you're out there. I don't like using the word pray too much, but you're talking to those money dog. You're talking to spirits, all of creation. And a lot of people say spirits, well, you can't see them, you can't feel them. but all of creation, you need air to breathe, you need water, you need sunlight, you need animals, you need plants and trees. We need all these things. And while you're out there, you're connecting to those and paying your respect to those. And fasting itself, you will respect nature by fasting, and that keeps us at one with nature and respecting those things and gaining that help. So another way to fast is I've done a couple of these. One time I had a sick family member, and so I went out. My gram said you can go out and do a fast for them, and that helps them heal and helps them in very powerfully. And I just want to give this little story. I had a sick family member. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. um, Hospital a lot, things were going on, and it was fasting season coming up. So I went out. There was some people that were going out, like 3-4 people around this lake, out at Morrison Lake. So I jumped, went in with them. They passed tobacco and said, I need to go for a day and a night. And so I get out there, and then I immediately got there and smoked my pipe and told, the money dog, I'm here for this person for healing. I'm sacrificing food, water, and coming out here to for them, to fast for them to get better. Um, Long story short, the next few weeks they did several tests, couldn't find anything, and they all of a sudden got better, and nothing was wrong with them after that, and they did heal up. So those are very powerful, and my gram said that that's what you can do. Um, at any time of the year, you can even we talked a lot about people putting you out to fast, but when you get a little bit older, they say once you have a pipe, or once you've attained manhood or womanhood, you can put yourself out. You can take your tobacco and a blanket and go sit in the woods and do your own fast out from your house or something, just that there's no dogs around, no human activity, and nobody can see you. Let's say you go out and somebody comes walking up and sees you, your fast is done.
Mm.
You can't be seen out there. So there are some protocols. Again, if you go fasting and you dream about it, or you really want to do it, you got a feeling for it, take tobacco and go to somebody you really respect, that has high integrity, that is safe, your family thinks is safe, and go give them tobacco and ask them to put you out fasting, or tell me about fasting, or I want to know more. I possibly want to go fasting, and go see that person. But make sure you feel good with who you are talking to. And if you do go to somebody and they make you feel weird, or you don't feel good, or they're asking you to do something that don't seem right, don't be afraid to end that relationship and go to somebody else. Make sure you feel safe with who you're talking to. And I usually guide people, your families, ask around. Who does your family go to? Who does your family use for these things? We all have big, huge families, and we have traditional people in our families, and that know doctoring people, that know people that put people out to fast, and use those first. But use your tobacco first. So, all right.
The next question, you covered a lot of the next question, and I'd like to start out on this one, because I thought of something while you were talking. Uh, the question is, how is Vision Quest a lifetime function? So, um, uh, and you had talked about we should fast a lot and
Yes,
frequently.
men.
And so, like, one story I heard was, before we're born, the spirits get together. They have a council meeting, smoke their pipes, and they decide, what gift are we going to give this child that come into Earth, that's going to be born, and they decide what gifts they're going to give them. So they got gifts before they're born, and during then they come through kind of like a a wormhole in space, Ogimaagiizhig kind of thing, a hole in the sky. They come zooming from the spirit world into the physical world, and then they come out and they're born. During all that, it's kind of traumatic. They're traumatized because it's a lot switching from spirit to physical world, and they forget what's going on, and they forget what that gift is that they were given, and they're learning about this new life, and uh, like when they're really young, they when they're babies, you see babies looking around, it's because they can see spirits still. They're still very spiritual. And they get a little bit older and they start learning about the physical world. They start losing that spiritual awareness. They become more physical and socially aware. And so now they're going to go back and go fast again to go find out what is that gift, what is my purpose here, what is my purpose here in life. And so we don't want to be get lost and stuck into bad habits, vices, drinking, gambling, all that. That kind of takes us away from that spiritual gift that we carry. And so we go out and fast again. It's a lifetime process. Like you said, as a little kid, you start practicing a little bit. Your first fast is then going to be 1 day. And there's no one right way of doing it. As long as you're fasting, it's good. There's many different teachings on it. And then so then you're going to do that 4 day fast, or even a 3 night, which encompasses 4 days. And we get into those fasts. Uh, some people, I know people that have fasted, 20 times in their lifetime, 4 day fast. Uh, like for me, I fasted a lot, and when I was given a drum, so I fasted 4 days for that drum. Then I got
Mm,
another drum, and I fasted. Normally, you only drum keepers, you're only supposed to have like one drum because it's enough to take care of and build that relationship. But I
mm,
fasted for that second drum, and then I had a sweat lodge. So I fasted in the sweat lodge, and I
mm,
had dreams of Sundance. So I went out and sundanced and those are 4 day fasts. And so there's a
mm,
lot of fasts that you'll go through in your life, and you're constantly building your fasting helps build your spiritual connection. It's
mm,
like you have a little flame in
mhm,
your soul, your spirit. The more you fast, the brighter that light is. The more kind and a sharing we become. When we become more spiritual, you become to understand how to respect other people, respect women, and respect yourself. And that spiritual light starts growing. So, and sometimes when you go out and fast for a vision, you don't get one. You're all bummed out. Man, I spent 4 days out there. I didn't even get a vision. But you do. The spirits see that.
mhm,
There might be waiting till when you're supposed to use that. It might be you're going to be busy, like you, looking for your doctor's degree. You're going for your doctorate. You might be busy. They might say, well, we're going to wait till he's done with that. That's hard work. And then give you that gift that you fasted 20 years ago and say, now it's time
mhm,
for them to start doing that. So
mm,
you always, the spirits are always there, and they're always with your tobacco. And they know when you're supposed to turn that light on for whatever gift that you have. If you're not already doing it and you don't even know it, you know,
mhm.
and
Yes.
maybe your gift is kindness, and like you, uh, Ogimaagiizhig, you're a very kind man, and maybe that was one of the gifts you were already given. You could have a whole toolbox of gifts.
Mm,
Who knows? But it's ongoing. You're always developing yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, intellectually. You're always developing your whole body, and fasting is part of that. Anything you want to add on why is Vision Quest a lifelong journey?
I think you covered that. That is pretty good. I mean, that you did. There was I think you covered that whole thing. That's really awesome.
Yeah, and I think the last part of it is that we never gonna know everything, and we
Mm,
should never pretend to know anything. And the more you learn, the realize the less you know. When you start paying attention and learning, and paying attention to cultural ways and protocols and ceremonies and songs, and pretty soon you're like, Cripes, there's so much more. There's so much more out there. You can never, when you think you know something, when we think you know a lot, you don't know anything. And when you realize you don't know anything, then that's when you start realizing there's so much out there. You're never going to know everything. And then when you pass away and you cross to the other side, everything is revealed to you. All of a sudden, you do know everything because you're part of everything
mm,
and connected to everything. And that's what this old man explained to me. You don't
mm,
have to know everything, and there's no one right way. So how can you possibly know everything? Don't worry about it. Everything is revealed to you, and you're back in the spiritual realm again, and that's part of the vision. They even talk about different levels of uh, 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 even spirits can get into battle and die in the spirit world. Then there's another level and another level. Some people say there's 9 levels, there are 8 levels,
Mm.
who knows. uh, uh, One thing I want to talk about too before we close, this man, my namesake, he was a dream keeper. I mean, speaking of visions, uh, he would say there's 4 types of dreams. There's the junk dream. You watch Godzilla movie and you have a dream about Godzilla. That doesn't mean Godzilla is your protector spirit. It just means you watched Godzilla on TV. Yeah, yeah, they call them junk dreams. You're just spitting out information that went into your mind. And the second dream is level of dreaming is traveling dream. They're not in levels. They're just types of dreams. Other ones like you dream you're someplace, and then son of a gun. Later on down the road, a week later, a couple years later, hey, I've been here before. I was in this dream. I remember this dream, and that's good. That means you're on the path you're supposed to be on. But also in the traveling dreams, you can go places. You can travel to someone else's house and check on them. You can travel to Mars. You can travel around the
Mm.
world. You can go back in time and forward in time. And so those are the traveling dreams. And I remember this. I asked this guy, how do you control that? And he said it's by just by your will. If you doubt yourself, you're not going to be able to fly or travel. Flying, you ever dream you're flying, you fall off something, you take flying. That's the
Mhm.
traveling, the flying dream. The next one is a power dream. You dream of an animal. Animal comes visit you. They either attack you. If they're attacking you, like biting you or fighting you, they're trying to get your attention. That's one of your helper spirits. So they come talk to you, and that's a power dream. Uh, uh, Let me see. A flying and premonition and power. I think that's about it. I think I got them mixed up. It's been about 30 years since they told me this.
Mm.
Kind of draw on that memory. Power, flight, and a premonition. Oh yeah, you see something that's going to happen ahead of time. The other one's
Mm.
flying. One's flying. You're flying around. It's like the university. You can go find out things and learn things. And the last one, that other one is a premonition. You dream of something happens, and it actually does happen. So that way you can kind of, when you wake up in the morning or you get up and you say, "Holy mackerel! I had a dream I was being chased by zombies. It's gonna be apocalypse. I've had a vision." No, wait a minute. It's because you were watching The Walking Dead. You're
Mhm.
binging on it. So don't
Yep.
worry about it. Uh, or other dreams, you kind of sort them out. And I remember asking a guy, I asked one person, there's different opinions on dreams. Like I asked my namesake, who was a dream keeper, he passed away. He said, I asked, why do you not talk about your dreams? And he said, well, people don't talk about their dreams because other people get jealous. You don't want to make them feel bad. He said, there's
Mm.
nothing wrong with talking about your dreams. Some people will talk about dreams. There's even talk about old guys sitting around underneath a tree talking about their dreams with each other. So they know who has what resources and they learn from each other. It's like a university. You learn something in the spirit world and you share it with your friend. Now you both share collective knowledge. But then other people will say it will be the opposite. And say never talk about your dreams
Mhm.
because the spirit to say, look at this guy, he's just arrogant, he's showing off about his dreams. How about we don't give him any more dreams? All they are is
Mhm.
just going around showboating. So
Mhm.
you want to be careful about that. So that's all I wanted to share about dreams because they have to do with the vision quest, and we want our young
Mhm.
men and our young women to start to go back and understand their culture and start fasting again.
Mhm.
And that's our university. I remember this old guy said, what are we going to do? Our next generations, we're losing our culture and our language. And I said, well, why don't we get them out to go fasting more? And then they
Mhm.
can learn from the spirits, our culture. He said, that's
Yeah.
a great idea. He said, we need to get everybody back out in the woods and learn from the spirits about our culture and our ways of life. And so this dreaming and visions is part of our university. It's our training. It's our PhDs that are we're gonna put them out there and we're gonna help each other learn. I let me see if I got to all of our the last question of all here is one is well, the last question I want to ask today is well, no, I need to ask this one. Why do we have to respect other people's visions, Ogimaagiizhig?
Because they're unique. So everybody has their own gift. The Creator gave us all something. He gave you something to that you're not better than anybody else at, but it's kind of it's your gift. Your some people can draw good. Some people like Gnu, you enlightened on. You said like in my toolbox. Um, being nice, being a good person, or being generous, or some people are good at mechanics, some people are good at hunting, some people are really good at mocking game. Whatever it is, all those things are as a gift. But some people will be like, well, I'm not really good at one thing. I mean, they're not better than anybody. But that gift, and that's the other part of fasting, is that's you start finding out what they say your first fast is your first appeal to the spirits on what is my gift. Sometimes they will be generous and give you that. This is what it is. You'll get a dream that you follow the rest of your life. I got like when I first went out, that first fast I did, I got something there that I use through my whole life now. Um, so with that, you got to respect other people's things, because if you try to be like somebody else, you'll never be that person, and you'll waste time and energy and ill feelings chasing that. Uh, as we as Anishinaabe, we'd be happy for each other's gifts. I'm happy that people have these gifts, and they're happy that I have these gifts. And we all in the lodge, we all bring something to the lodge, to the family, to our circles, to our community, and help those out through fasting and stuff. Our humbleness, like whatever your gift is, um, you go and teach that. One thing I feel I've been gifted with is moccasin game, in learning the game, and I teach as many people as I can, and I feel that is one of my community duties, is to share that gift
Mm.
with as many Anishinaabe as I can through the rest of my life. So, and that's why you need to respect other people's gifts, and they respect yours, because we're all individual, we're all different, and we all have a different gift.
Yeah.
And they say this gift is the key to a good life, not because not only because it takes care of you, or could make money, or make you successful in providing for your family and stuff, but that it keeps you healthy. And it's kind of compared to the like with wisdom, the seven sacred teachings. You have wisdom. The beaver, a mick, represents wisdom, and with his teeth, they continuously grow. So he's always out there cutting trees down, and working that, because to keep him alive and to keep his family alive, he has to use those teeth every day. He's always busy, and that's his gift. Those teeth that continually grow are his gift. If he doesn't use those teeth, if he just lets them go, if he doesn't cut trees down, he's lazy. He doesn't want to take care of anybody or help his family with those teeth. They'll get so big that he'll pass on. And I say with us also, if you don't use your gift, if you don't find out what it is, if you don't use that gift, you become sick,
Mm.
and it'll cut your life prematurely. Um, and that's one of the things in living a good life, is find your gift, and embrace that. And it doesn't mean it's going to be something that's really easy. It might be something that you had to work on and
Mm.
learn. So it's kind of the English language is kind of a tricky thing, where you think of a gift as something freely given, where it's not. And that's where fasting comes in. You need to put something in to get something out. What you put out into the universe, you get back. And that fasting is the way to identify that gift. Your first fast is appealing to all of creation. What is my purpose here? My parents have taken care of me. I'm at the age now. I'm on the doorstep of becoming a man or a woman, and what is my gift that I am going to help my family, my community, my people live a good life. So that's what that and that's it's individual. So you respect other people's gift because you don't know how much work they did to
Yeah.
hone to get that gift, or
Yeah.
how much fasting they had to go to identify that, or how much it means to them. And we treat each other well. We don't tear each other down, and should do those things, because it only hurts everybody. So that's why we respect each other's gifts and celebrate them.
I like what you said about, it's not free. It comes with work. Like I
Mhm.
remember this old man, a medicine man, he'd say, never want to be a medicine man. And
Mhm.
we always want to be famous, all of us. We have a
Mhm.
need to belong and be accepted and be like I don't the word escapes me, but we all want to be uh feel like we have a purpose, and we're socially, emotionally, we want to be accepted and belong. And so everybody wants to, the easy ones is like, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a medicine man, I want to be a chief. But there's all kinds of gifts. And but anyways, he's never want to be a medicine man. So I remember, and I'm sure you remember this too, some of the medicine men, there'd be people lined up at their house every single day. And
Mhm.
you had to get in there, you get there and you'd have to take a number. There'd be 5, 6 people, and they'd be doctoring, late into the night. And they'd have to get up and go to work in the morning to pay their bills. And because people were being cheap, you're supposed to give them tobacco, food, and a gift, and throw a little bit of gas money in there. But people just
Mhm.
are getting cheap, and they just want to put tobacco out there. That's not the old ways. The old way was sacrifice, because you're asking for something big. You're asking for
Mhm.
someone to save your life, and you're just giving them tobacco. I'm getting a little bit away, but the point is, uh, uh, don't keep wanting everything, and be glad that the spirits give everybody different gifts, so the work can be spread out. And say, man, I'm so glad I don't have to be a medicine man, stay up all night, 5 hours, 4 hours sleep every night. Be glad for that. Be glad that somebody else is doing, maybe they're doing running ceremonies. You think ceremonies are easy, but those old guys that got a shake tent or whatever ceremony they got to get up, go way out in the woods. They got to look around, try to find what they need out in the woods. That takes all day. It takes gas. They got to get their chainsaws out, and they got to carry all that stuff out in the woods, and they come back. And then it's hard work with all the different types of gifts, and it's a lifetime learning. If your job is to know medicines, you got to study medicines. You got to spend money. You got to give tobacco. You got to learn it. You got to learn all the different plants. If you're going to be like a pharmacist, a herbalist, it's a lot of work. So we respect that they're taking that work. They're doing that work. So we respect their gifts. Be glad you don't have to do everybody's job. And that's why I would respect them. You know.
Yep, very
Okay.
good.
Last question, Nij. I know you're looking a little bit tired there. It's early in the morning, and so here's our last question. What are the boys and the men supposed to do? Take care of their stuff, and when women are on their moon. What is our job when women are on their moon?
Men's roles on when women are on their moon. So this is a good one for you young boys. You're probably already getting these teachings for when your mom's on her time. So you'll kind of, yeah, that'll be your you'll know your protocol then. So when my mom was on her time, she used her own spoon, her own bowl. Um, we didn't touch as much. But there's this teaching too. It for me. I've been around long enough, so I've kind of seen some of our cultural things evolve from our old ways, where I was lucky enough when I was these young guys' age to be around my grandma, and then to where I am now on how people do things. So first, this is such a crucial thing, because you got people that are very extreme, that really live a protective with it, and then you got some that might do a little something that don't do much. So in this day and age, it's a lot different. I've heard stories of um, people that the women had a separate lodge even, but my gram said that was only on the first year of girl gets her time. When a girl gets her time, that first year she gets her, when she first gets it for that first year, when she does her berry fast. And the reason she does her berry fast is because it's so powerful. It's like a knife. It's a sharp knife that you've never had a knife before, you've never held one, and you can accidentally hurt people. You can accidentally hurt yourself. So it's a time to be celebrated, but at the same time, it's a powerful tool. So women have to learn how to use it, and men need to learn how to respect it. Um, so with women, there during that time, there's usually protocol. When my sister went through her very fast, there was certain protocol that we followed. It was a little more strict and a little more, um, she didn't hug us. She didn't bother our sacred items. Doesn't step over our stuff, and that's the most important. When you're at ceremony and a woman is there, she can still get tobacco. She can still have her own tobacco and use that when she's on her time. Um, and they can still be at ceremony, but the what I wanted to say is there's strictness where some people watching this, or you might come across people that are very, very strict that say no, they shouldn't be there, no, they shouldn't have tobacco. But there's a medium with it, and I'm just sharing my own family experience um, with ours. So beyond the berry fast is a whole different issue. Um, and then I'll leave that to a woman to translate those things and to share those things. But as far as a man is concerned, and that's why men should pick up after themselves. You shouldn't leave things laying around because women shouldn't step over them. Um, your moccasin game stuff, your hunting equipment, they say is dangerous for a woman on her time to touch or be around because it can affect that power. Because women are so powerful, that's the most powerful time. They're the most powerfulest being when they are on their time with that life giving force. Um, so as men, you keep your stuff. If you're hunting equipment, guns and stuff, you should probably keep safely somewhere anyway in a gun safe. Knives should be in a sheath and put away somewhere where anybody can get to them anyway, or children accidentally hurt themselves or somebody get hurt on them. So it's a lot about being responsible and giving women their space also during that time. That's basically what the teaching is, giving them their space when they are on their time. And they also they get their own teachings. My gram used to have one where when they wore their skirt, they don't let that skirt touch or go over anything because it could alter luck and the ability to hunt and bring food in, and the rice crops and different things. So it's all about giving that space. And as men, we pick up after ourselves. We don't we're responsible and give women those space during those sacred times.
And
You know.
I've even heard like people would say, men don't step over things either. Not that
Yes,
they don't
yes.
have to, they just doing that to respect women. Women
Yeah,
don't get to
yes.
step over, so we'll show them respect and we won't step over too.
Yes. And one of the things I'll point this out there, like with moccasin game, my shooting sticks, I carve my old style oak sticks that I have, and that's kind of a personal thing. So even with other men, I don't let other men use my sticks, and it's almost offensive. A lot of these teachings are getting diluted and almost not even there anymore with even the moccasin game environment of just grabbing anybody's stick and using it. Where the teaching is like you don't like with my team, only my brothers use my shooting sticks and my stick. I don't borrow it out. Any player that plays moccasin game should have his own stick. Whether they carve one out or go buy one in the store, a fiberglass rod to use for moccasin game. But even then, it's a personal item. We need to respect each other's stuff. And my grandma used to say that us as Ojibwe were really respectful of that. She used to say that when you have things, you either earn them, make them, or have been given to you, and that's how it should be. You know, you don't you don't steal, you don't just take, you don't just assume things are yours. You know, And that's the way we kind of do that. So like with Moxie, it's one of the things with Moxie game. And, and I was taught by the older guys that, you just don't go around handling other people's stuff that's disrespectful and can change the energy in things, even with Moxie games. So like with my shooting sticks, my brothers will use my sticks. We're on the same team, and they're the only ones. Otherwise, um, I might have a spare one in a car or something that's a fiberglass one if someone needs to use one or really needs one. Or we're in northern Minnesota and you can walk out in the woods and very well get your own stick and have it ready. And that's the common protocol, is that once you can play the game, you should have your own game set. And even if it just takes walking out in the woods and cutting a hazel stick down and sharpening it, and
So with your stick, you're putting your thoughts and feelings and energy into that stick, and that stick becomes a animate object, it becomes spiritual.
yes,
And
very, very so.
so you don't share it, so you don't want other people messing up your juju, your
Yeah, and you
energy,
and you
your
and you don't
mojo.
want and you don't want people you don't want to be disrespectful, because it'd be like, like eating your food, like you're sitting down to eat your food, and somebody walks in and just takes your plate and says and eats some of it. That's, you could get them sick. That's
Mm.
just disrespectful. You could start troubles, and there's hard feelings. So it's the same thing with items. And then with women, like, that's what whatever your family protocol is how you should handle those times. And again, from what I've seen through my life, it gets to be the woman's time, is almost sometimes can almost be interpreted as a negative thing. There's so many rules, there's so many things to it. But again, it's a special time, especially for a woman, and it deserves its space. And that's where that just kind of respecting others people's space and things comes into that. um and even like with even with the Moxon game, like messing up the mojo, or being disrespectful with things like that. You don't want to. And if you think of it, you're just creating a little bit of hard feelings, or
Yeah.
um, that. And then also with that, if you run around and like around powwows or Moxie game or even ceremony, once that pipe comes out, kids or young people, watching this video, when you're at a ceremony or an elder's talking and the tobacco's out, that's when it's time to settle down and listen. That's when it's time to learn. Like on a fast, you get out there and you're not talking there, you're not. They're there to help you. So you get, you do that, and it's disrespectful to run around a powwow and grab people's feathers and touch things, or even stand where you shouldn't be standing at. Moxing games is the same way. If you walk up to a game and you got family playing, there's a certain place you should stand and support them, and don't step over things or handle things that ain't yours, and things like that. And through our culture, there's been times where they'll say, don't, so and so handled somebody's things, and all of a sudden they had some bad luck, or they handled something and then it didn't last very long, or it's just being respectful of other people's things. And I think it goes with the moon time also, where even with our hunting, with now, you don't need a gun to go to feed your family anymore. You kind of go get your meat from the grocery store and stuff. But before, when we hunted, our guns there's teachings with those guns. There's the gun teaching, but that gun, we would smudge it every once in a while. And only, even with my rifle, like, I'm the only one who shoots my rifle, and my brothers are the only ones that I'd let use my gun. Otherwise, nobody else uses it. So with your things, and that's part of going into your gift, where your gift is yours, and you strengthen and use that, always, and you're always in a state of betterment, even with yourself, respecting yourself. You can drink a case of pop if you want to, because it tastes good, but it's not good for you. you know so you respect yourself, and don't, maybe have one or two, but don't drink the whole case. So a lot of that just goes back into that, and I think it just goes into, with women's things, are respecting protocol of on how your family does things. And that's where I would have you probably start at, is how your family does it, because some are strict and some ain't as strict
Yeah.
you know
So we respect we respect women in their powerful gift. We respect ourselves by taking care of our stuff and treating our stuff with higher regard. It's not just a hatchet. it's something that you possess, and
Mm-hmm.
you treat it respectfully and put it away. We don't leave stuff laying on the ground where people have to step over, or women have to keep walking around. If you see something that's in the way and a woman is coming, you move it out of the way, you help out. You get up and help. And if your wife is on their time, you get up and help out. You cook,
Mm-hmm.
and you're part of the teamwork. And it's
Mm-hmm.
all about respecting life and creation and the power of
Yes.
creation. Well, Niji, that's all the time we got today. I really appreciate you sharing, and hopefully we can talk some more on some other topics, so our young ones, our grandkids, can see these and start thinking about stuff, and get out fasting and start making our nation strong again. How me good,
Yes, yes.
maybe good
How, yes, all you kids listening, remember, take care of yourself and
Mm,
remember your Anishinaabe first.
yep.
Oh,
Ni
miigwech
which
neji. Oh, qué bueno.